Another beautiful ruck. Something about starting on this path when it's completely dark outside and the stars are here, and then finishing up with the sun coming up is just magical. So a few weeks ago, I was in some quarterly planning sessions, and one of the sessions had some things coming on from the last 6 months or year or so between the two founders. And they were in some disagreements, some issues that they were having with each other. And I really understood both of them from where they came from. You know, I think when there's disagreements, a lot of times it's important to look back at who they were and how they became who they are, because your frame of the world and how you think things are or think things should be is really about how you grew up and who you had to become when you grew up, or the environment that you grew up in. It really shapes a lot of things. And not that it always goes back to this, but it really kind of does. It shapes your worldview of how the world should be. And a lot of times when you're running a program that is from when you were young, you have to wake up and look at, is this program still needed right now? Do I still need to be this way? And so I'll go into it a little deeper to give some context to the story. So one of the founders grew up, and his father passed away at a very young age in a very traumatic way. So here was this little boy at maybe 5 years old, and he had to learn how to navigate the world without a father. And so when you're born, your mother represents yourself, because you are a part of your mother. You don't believe that you're separate from your mother. So your mother teaches you how to take care of yourself, how to treat yourself. And then what your father is your first external relationship, right? He's the first person in your life outside of yourself. And so your father teaches you how to treat the world. And if you grew up with your mother being a certain way, you more than likely take on her attributes of how to treat yourself. Now, this isn't good or bad. It doesn't need to be labeled right now. It just needs to be understood, okay? Because gosh, you know, your parents are doing the best they can depending on how they grew up and what they went through and generations before that and yada, 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 right? And so it's not like we're here to bash your parents for what they didn't give you. It's here to understand what they didn't give you, because now it's time to reparent yourself. Take a look at that. I love the look of the pink and the orange and all the colors. And so it's about trying to reparent yourself and just become aware of it first, and then trying to give yourself whatever you didn't have, okay? So this one, back to the story. So this one guy, he grew up without a father, so he had to learn how to navigate this world on his own. But since he didn't have a father, what he really lacked was trust. He couldn't trust the world because the person that was supposed to teach him to have trust and to build that inside of him wasn't there. And so he walks around with a lot of control issues, right? Because when we don't have trust, we have a lot of fear, and we kind of suffice that fear or get rid of that fear when we just try to control things, right? And then we're also could be very aggressive. That's something else, because this little boy woke up one day and there was nobody to take care of him, so he had to be strong and tough and maybe mean at times, aggressive and not trust to survive. So that's founder number one. That's how he lived his life, right? And that's the program that's playing in his head over and over and again. Now, when he was a little boy, it was really great. It was able to get him stronger. It was able for him to step up and take care of his family. It really served him at one time. Now the other founder, we'll call him founder number two, okay? He grew up with both parents, and his mom, though, wasn't really able to give herself things, so therefore she wasn't able to give him things. And so when you have a mom that wasn't really able to give you everything that you needed, what comes up is that you lack taking responsibility. You lack accountability. You're not really good at keeping structure and routines, right? You're just lacking that part of you because you don't know how to take care of yourself. That makes sense, right? You're just, in your sense of self and how you need to be is there. Once again, this isn't a knock on moms or dads. This is just an understanding of why you are the way you are. And it's also understanding that who you had to adapt to be was based on survival. It was your little boy or little girl, whoever's watching this, it was your little way to go, okay, if I act like this, I will survive. I will get by. And then you grow up in your life and you're running this program, and now you get a real big opportunity in your life. And so what do? Do you look at it very abundantly, or do you play that subconscious survival program that's been running in your life your whole time? You guessed it, the survival program. So there was a disagreement between the two founders. And so what happens? Founder number one, the one with the father stuff, the control, the aggression, the anger, all of that, the fear. He's jumping all over the founder number two about this stuff. And then what happens when he addresses him? Well, he doesn't know how to take accountability because he's lost that. He hasn't had all those things that he's needed to learn from his mother. So founder number one will go up to him, you didn't do this, this, and this. And founder number two just replies with things that sound like the word but. Bum, 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 but this, this, and this, but this, and this, right? Passing off responsibility. And every sentence founder number two would say, founder number one would just blow up and get more mad and more aggressive because that's interrupting that program. And so I sat them down in the middle of this meeting, and even though it was a business strategy meeting, I really opened them up to this idea that this is what you were doing. You are playing this program, and it's just you two are fighting with each other to keep filling this void instead of realizing what void you need to give yourself. You know, guys, a lot of this stuff is just about reparenting yourself. It's not about bashing your parents. And we sat down and we talked about it. And the second I brought this idea to them and this awareness to them, everything just made a lot of sense. Their whole journey of how they became who they are made a lot of sense. And now they're starting to work on it, right? It's not going to be perfect, but they have awareness to this. Because the problem with this program is like I said, it was built when you were a kid. And kids are little animals. We're trying just to survive, right? And now as you grow older, you're 30, 35, 40, 45, you're married with kids, you got a thriving business. You are done surviving. It's time to live abundantly. It's time to thrive. But if you are playing a survival program, everything is going to feel that way. And so how did I learn this? Well, I had my own journey, right? And so I kind of had a double doozy. So I grew up without a dad, with a dad that was in federal prison for 11 years. And that was my life, right? He went to prison when I was 5, and he came home to get me for a license. He left when I started kindergarten, came home to get me without a license. So how was I as a kid? I didn't respect authority. I got suspended every year for fighting. I was mean, I was aggressive. I was just like that. Anything could set me off at any moment because I didn't trust the world because that center of trust wasn't there. Now, this isn't a knock on my dad, okay? This is just the reality of the situation. So don't go home after you read this or watch this and just start motherfucking your parents, okay? That's not the thing, okay? They tried the best they can with the knowledge that they had, even though that's a hard pill to swallow, that's a fucking reality. And to some degree, we are all gonna mess our kids up a little bit. And all we want to do is give them the tools so if they could fix it for their next generation in the next way, and so on and so on. Then on top of this stuff with my dad was also very, very aggressive with me from a very young age, like very, not violent to me, but there was always just a sense of violence. And I'll give you an example. Like when I was 5, my dad came home with like Louisville Slugger professional baseball bats and told me that if I ever get in trouble or get in a fight, I need to come home and get my baseball bat so I could go fight kids. And literally, I did that at 5 years old, driving down the block to go beat up some kid that was fighting my cousin. Just a complete violent, aggressive world that I grew up in. And also on top of the violence, my dad, when he went to prison, he was, well, how old was he? Man, he was maybe 35 years old. He just lived the best decade of his life, making a bunch of money, having the greatest time in the 80s, traveling, going to all the Mike Tyson fights and all of that, Caesar's Palace, just living a great life. We had a house in Lake Geneva, a boat, like everything was really posh. Everything was really great. And then all of a sudden he goes to prison, and his wife, who never really worked, has to get a job, and he has to take care of their young kids and family. And that stress really weighed on my father. And on top of that, he was in maximum security federal prisons, okay? I mean, just, I can't even imagine the level of fear that he was feeling. And my dad, I love him so much, but being able to really articulate that and understand that is not in his wheelhouse. And so what he would do is he would just be really hard on me. I was overweight when I was a kid, and every time we would go see him or every time he would call, he would just knock on me for being overweight. He forced me to get jobs. He was just really like that. And there was moments too when I was a kid, before he went to prison, there's just episodes where he was just really hard on me and just not allowing me to be a child and just not allowing me to be myself. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because when I was a little boy, my mom just sat there and watched it. My mom just watched this all happen. And so I grew up with a lot of resentment for my mother because I felt like she should have protected me at 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old. And she just stared there and did nothing because she grew up in a world that a woman or a wife never does that to her husband. But as a little boy, I didn't understand that. All I knew was my mom didn't protect me from this mean guy that was my father. This mean guy that's my father is in prison. I got no daddy. I don't know how to trust people. I got to connive ways to get control of situations. I have to manipulate things to get situations just so I could feel safe. So I grow up with this whole programming, and then what do you think I become as a young man? A controller, a manipulator. And I was even mad at women because I thought my mother wasn't the right kind of strong kind of woman. And then I had to sit down one day and remove these layers, these pedestals that we keep our parents on, that mommy and daddy and all of that stuff, and start looking at them like they're real people. Start looking at them like you're just Guy and Maria, and how did they become that way? And you just begin to understand that process. That's what this is about, is creating an opportunity for awareness. And then you scratch that itch a little bit deeper and you start digging into things. So then you come to find out that my dad grew up bullied, right? My dad's mom was very hard on him. He grew up bullied because he was overweight. His dad worked 2 jobs, barely spoke to him. And so he never had any refuge. And then one day, he's a larger man. One day, he probably beat somebody up that was picking on him. And that feeling of insecurity, that feeling of lack washed away. And so my dad found freedom in violence and aggression. And then what else was he ever going to be able to teach me besides violence and aggression, right? And then my mom grew up, like I said, in a world where the women never questioned the husband or father. She just nodded her head and did whatever they said. And that was her life. And so the point of all this is to just really realize what subconscious programs, what childhood trauma programs are you running right now that don't serve you anymore? And once I started learning that and learning who they were, I was able to just start reparenting myself. I learned more of what a full range of what a man could be like. A man could be kind and still be strong. A man could be forgiving and still have, courage and all of that stuff. And then I learned that this is the way my mother was, but I could learn how to develop discipline. And for me, discipline, work ethic, willpower, all of that came in the form of exercise and health and nutrition. I look at me going to do this ruck. Yeah, it's for exercise, but me getting up at 5 a.m, parking my car on the street because you can't even get in the gate here, and walking down this complete black but moon-filled trail is how I'm building willpower and discipline in my life. And so just take a look at what you're running in your programming from when you were a kid, because it's based on survival. It's not based on abundance. It's not based on thriving. It's not based on what you're trying to build in your business, and more than likely what kind of family you're trying to create. And if you don't get a grip on this, this is going to keep putting you in a cycle that you're going to keep going, building something, and then hitting a wall and breaking. Building, hitting a wall, and breaking. And you're never going to know why. You're going to think it was the market. You're going to think it was the marketing. You're going to think it was someone on your team that didn't deliver, yada, 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 yada. But the truth is that you're running a program that's sabotaging it all. And if you don't get a grip on this, this is going to be your life. And so just slow down right now, grab a journal, and just think about your parents. Think about what the qualities they had that were great, because let's not bash them for anything, everything. You got some great stuff from them. I got some wonderful stuff from my parents. My mother's one of the most thoughtful women that I've ever met. She's one of the most gracious women that I've ever met. My father, this aggression, this strength, I look at it now as just courage, as having the balls to go do whatever I want. So there's always a positive side to these things. But then there's parts of this that they couldn't give you. And now it's time for you to learn what they couldn't give you and then start giving it to yourself. And I don't care what you have to do, right? Like, I've hired coaches, I've hired mentors, I've read a lot of books. It doesn't matter what you need to do. Just get on the path of reparenting yourself so that you can live an abundant life, you could build a great business, and you could take care of your family the way deep down that you really want to, and stop running around like you don't know what's going on. This is your wake up opportunity for awareness. Then there's awareness, then there's acceptance, and then there's gratitude. I am so grateful for the life that I had. I am so grateful for this journey that I had, but I don't need to live like I'm this 10-year-old boy trying to survive in the world anymore, because it doesn't serve me, it doesn't serve my family, and it doesn't serve my business. So lean into this. I know this is kind of hippy dippy wooey stuff. This isn't just like, oh, do this and you'll make more money. Let me tell you what, you could watch all those guru videos and do all that stuff. This program's still running. You're going to sabotage all that shit. It doesn't even fucking matter. And I'm willing to bet if you're hearing this right now and you look at some great plan that you were supposed to do, but it just didn't seem to work out, this is probably the reason why. So get a journal, get some time out there, go and reflect. Take your parents off the pedestal. They're just human beings just like you. They're beautifully imperfect. They got some good stuff. They got some bad stuff. Whatever it is, figure it out. Start reparenting yourself and stop bleeding this all into your business and this bullshit that no longer needs to serve you. All right, have a great day, guys. Bye-bye.